So now I want to move on to the second of my big questions, and this one I really feel is the heart of the discussion for me anyway, and that's how did we get here? Whether you were delighted or disgusted that Donald Trump won the election on November 8th, I think you were probably also flabbergasted. Almost no one saw that victory coming, and by many reports, not even Trump saw it coming. Before that, no one thought Brexit had a chance. And since November, we continue to see developments that shake the foundations of what we now think of sometimes as the old order. The old order being what we would have called the modern world just a year or two ago. So my next big question is, how did we get here? What in our history led to this? And how far back do we need to go to understand it? And again, I'm going to ask each of you to start by giving me your 60-second answer. And this time, I'm going to start with Adrienne. How did we get here?
Well, it's funny. I mean, you talk about Brexit, and I remember being in the White House, and none of us thought Brexit was going to go the way it did. And I was sort of emailing one of my British counterparts, like, well, we should get on the phone tomorrow. And I'm watching the vote, and I'm like, yeah, we should talk tomorrow. And then the vote sort of went the other way, and I was like, or when you get a chance, like when you come up for air, it's fine, no rush. And then, of course, when our election happened, I was getting calls from my British counterparts like, we've been there. We know how to, we know all the coping mechanisms. You can give us a call. I think finally the French maybe got it right? They sort of saw what had happened and corrected. But I think, we got here, in my mind, because we got a little comfortable, right? We all sort of looked at candidate Trump, and I guess I should say maybe we progressives, right, looked at candidate Trump and didn't really take it seriously. And as you said, I don't think any of this started with Trump or his candidacy, but there has been sort of a comfortability after having elected, and then re-elected the first black president, and the economy's been going well since the financial crisis and all of these things. And maybe we weren't all paying the attention to our communities and to our neighbors that we should have been.
Zach?
I'm in agreement with what Adrienne just noted, and although I can't think of something that's causal, I can say that what concerns me as somebody that's worked in communications is this complete, utter breakdown of the press, which is, a necessity in the Constitution, one of the first things that's mentioned. The fact that facts are completely irrelevant now, and opinion can be presented as facts. And actually enlightenment and debate and being willing to take 80% of something as opposed to 100% of nothing. I mean, this is how we're in a world that's very interesting. And as an elected, and Sam knows this, we're not rewarded for compromise anymore. I mean, at all. We're not given the space to compromise. It's not viewed as an acceptable thing. And that plays out across the entire spectrum. And I think that one of the ways that we're coming to this situation at the national side is that we've lost this overall common purpose and common understanding of what community is. You don't see it in the media. People are self-selecting into facts that they want to from the media. You're not seeing it from elected officials who aren't rewarded to be able to compromise or take any kind of situation on that. And that actually has to change. I don't know what catalyzing event is necessary for that. Maybe this is stage one, right? This election is maybe stage one. But that is very concerning to me, that breakdown of commonality among America in general, this sense of that we have an overriding purpose as opposed to just an individualistic component.
And Sam?
Well, I think I'm fond of the Washington Post motto is that democracy dies in darkness. And I think the darkness has occurred because we politicians haven't done a very good job of explaining the whole problem. We kind of just talk about what our niche is, what's broken in our minds, and then accusing the other side of not helping to fix us. All these things that I've accomplished and you give me accolades for have always been working with both sides of the aisle and creating compromise. Politics is the art of compromise. But I agree with Zach that the press hasn't done a very good job of explaining how to get to yes. They don't really follow through. I mean, I'll take immigration, for example. We had a bill in Congress, which we were working with Republicans. It was all behind the scenes because the Republicans said, I can't tell anybody I'm working on this at home because I will get in trouble. And Judge, who was a congressman from Texas, Carter, it was a leading member. He's on the Judiciary Committee of this thing. And he was working on a compromise with Zoe Lofgren for an immigration bill with the Republicans and Democrats. The minute the word got out that he was even attending meetings to find a compromise, his constituency told him that they were going to primary him. that he was going to be out in the next primary. And the Koch brothers were there to give money to a very right-wing opponent opposing immigration reform. So you can't even get, you can't even begin now to get to a discussion. And what I think the media could be playing a role. I mean, what if all the networks decided, how do we really get to yes on immigration reform, and followed like a mini-series each one of these issues? Everyone says, well, we got to build the wall. Well, let's discuss the wall. Wall's a compromise. If we have to build part of the wall in order to get the vote to legalize the undocumented, I'd give some money to do that, although I don't think they need a dime. But that's what you have to do. And if we follow these issues out so the electorate could be informed instead of just sort of this National Enquirer type media that we get that's hour by hour having to ratchet up in a kind of a gotcha news system. I don't know how we get to a well-informed electorate anymore if we don't use the media to help us discuss all aspects of an issue.
Well, some of these issues go right back to the founding, right? I mean, Jefferson, Hamilton, this is what these folks were talking about when they were designing our founding documents. This is why we have a First Amendment was given the primary space in the list of amendments, that they recognize that if you're going to have the people in charge, the people have to be well informed. And so you have to have a free press, hopefully a responsible press, that does a good job of informing them. And then there's education. You have to have an educated electorate. And so part of the genius of the founders, I think, is they recognized a lot of the key issues that we're still wrestling with now. One thing that I think that's a key theme in a common theme in everything that the three of you just said is this sense of a loss of common purpose in various ways. Adrienne said that we've become complacent, as if it's somebody else's job to be involved in politics, right? And Zach says he has a lot of trouble finding people who will back off from an extreme position. And Sam, you said a version of the same thing, that if people do try to negotiate, they get punished. And meanwhile, the press seems to stay focused on the battle, right? They love the conflict. So my question is, what would be the way to start to restore some sense of common purpose, and why did we lose it?
Well, I think you have to, first of all, get involved. Henry Mello used to say that politics is not a spectator sport. You really got to get involved. I think that there is hope. I mean, look what's happening with Emily's List. Last year, before in the election, Emily's List was trying to seek women who would run for public office. They were very excited when Hillary was a candidate. They got 1,000 women asking Emily's List for help because they were going to be candidates in elections. Emily's List, after the Women's March, has now signed up 11,000 women to run for public office. Their membership was about 3 million women who contributed to Emily's List. It's up to 5 million women. They're calling that the Trump bump. The ACLU had 450,000 paid members prior to the Muslim ban. After people responded by appearing at the airports and the ACO started filing lawsuits, the ACO now has 1.6 million paid members, and the list is growing. So I think that people are responding, and I think you have to respond by getting involved in something and connecting with, we're all organizers, with some kind of organizing tool.
You literally would not have any idea that this had even gone on, or you would buy into the narrative that this has all been a rigged system and it's all trying to bring somebody down. Look, if we can't agree that the sky is blue, legitimately, I think we have to have a fundamental agreement of what a fact is. And think about it, from science, from whatever it may be, we're now at a situation where we don't even agree what a fact is. We have alternative facts.